and the stories that will be told, and the anxiousness of students to have certain teachers there. You know, is Mr. Schroth still? What about Miss Stevens? Are they still there? We really would like to invite them. These are, you know, 32 years ago, but they want their teachers there. There's my evaluation. Anyway, I got a couple things to share with you.
You know what? I think we need to teach the children the 5 stages of grief. Because what they're doing is grieving, and they can't believe it. They get depressed, and ultimately you accept. You have to go through those 5 things. Some people process it in 10 minutes and you're over, and some people it just takes a long time.
Live it over and over every night. It's coming.
Because you're right, it is a form of grief. Absolutely. That's a very good perspective. I love it. See, that's why we named our company Two Perspectives. There's always another perspective. Generative school leaders are not always just the principal, not just those central office people, not just the school board. It's me, it's you, it's them, it's your colleagues, and most importantly, parents, community members, and those kids. Really, leadership development is through the kids. You'll just see so many opportunities create themselves from a generative perspective. We're all about developing leadership throughout. It's no longer hierarchical. It's hierarchical if it has to be. No shortcuts to mastery exist. In your book, here's what we focused on. We observed and researched successful organizations and schools from our vast body of experience and said, what are some hallmarks or characteristics of the kinds of leaders who seem to be really having huge success, not just academically, but in school culture development, that they, no matter where they are, in some cases, in fact, one of my absolute favorite, I would call him a generative leader, is in one of the toughest schools in Flint, Michigan. Half the school is a regular ed school, and simultaneously mixed in is a magnet school for about every type of disability you can imagine on the planet, all under the same roof. And this principal leads that building. And the leadership disbursement that's throughout, it's probably the happiest school I've ever been in my life. You've got autistic kids, you've got kids with helmets on, you've got kids that can't see, kids that can't hear, kids that can't speak, EI kids, that's emotionally impaired, kids, every type, and everybody's in a good mood. And you're thinking, man, all of the weight that's on this whole thing, how do they do that? And you meet Dan Beresky.
Is that Kersland?
Pardon me?
Kersland?
No, Flint. Flint Public, right next to Kettering University. It's a K-6 elementary school, magnet program, unbelievable. But you meet Dan, who's been asked on multiple occasions to leave the school and go to central office. He won't do it. His purpose in his life is in that building. Mr. Dan. He is so cool. So we looked at what are some of the characteristics. Deepen your personal knowledge. This is a tool that you might be able to use with your students and for yourself particularly. The kinds of a hallmark that we found is that generative leaders that we find to be highly effective are constantly trying to deepen their personal knowledge. They want to learn more. That's just a characteristic. Now what we did in the book, for those of you that have one in front of you, in the back, if you find the hallmarks page, let me slip to that really fast. Here's how we broke that out. Go to page 87. Let me show you what we did, and here are some tools you might be able to use. 87. You'll see the hallmarks, the same graphic there, but in black and white. And then you'll see on the facing page, deepens your personal knowledge. And then we said, well, what kind of action steps could you choose to go do? Again, on choice. What could you go do if you personally said, you know, I think I'd like to enhance that hallmark in myself? What are some things I could do? Travel. So here's some ideas. Well, yeah, absolutely. Travel. Absolutely. So there, there we have, read, read, read. It seems simple, but there's so much literature out there. Have you read anything about your work lately? Have you gone out on the web or grabbed a new book or just read? Or could you go some places, attending seminars and places? You see a lot of folks who are just so frustrated they don't want to go anywhere, talk to anybody, or do anything. So go places, and perhaps places that are out of your area of expertise. Something that's new and fresh for you that you might be able to introduce into the living system to disturb it a little bit that maybe it hadn't been done before. So et cetera, et cetera. So we laid the book out that way. Another hallmark that, back to Earl's question yesterday, promote professional conversations. When I'm at school, when I'm at work, and I'm the leader, I promote professional conversations. If people are in a bashing mode, they're in a bitchy mode, excuse me, they're in a complaint or whatever, I'm not there. See it? I will have a conversation that is intellectual or that has some value or relevance or professional and remind myself I am a professional educator. And I'm going to model that at every point in time. My wife and I were at our place in Kalkaska, Michigan, 240 miles away from our home and her school, and we're taking a walk on the back road. Mrs. K! Guess whose grandpa lives down the road? So it's a good thing, she wasn't in some beat-up old ratty outfit or whatever, and in this profession, we can be seen by anybody, anywhere, anytime, and Earl's going to put us all on YouTube, so there.
I was in Costa Rica in line at the airport. Mister!
There it is.
Right behind me, one of my former students.
But this whole, but a key point, I know I promised you 10th grade, I really like to share one more video clip with you, but promoting professional conversations, information is the lifeblood of a living system. Information. All information is the lifeblood. That's how the system functions, based on its information. And the quality of that information. So you are a part of the system. So I am intentionally going to choose to promote professional conversations at all points. I'm not going to play in your little games of, let's complain about this and beat up that board member, and did you hear about this person? I heard a rumor that da-da-da-da. That's not professional. I'm not going. I'm going to choose to introduce professional conversations as best I can in places that I can. It's a choice. I've seen that. We've seen it. This is big. Some of the top people, leaders that we've seen engage in personal reflection. They literally take time to step away from everybody else and go reflect. Find your seat at the end of the dock and let your feet dangle in the water and reflect, consciously reflect. And say, I am going to think about and relate my thinking and philosophies and values, spirit to what we just talked about. And I'm going to see where I am with that. That's critical. Rely on creativity and innovation. Is they rely, keyword, they rely. They don't hope for it. They don't, keep their fingers crossed. It's, I'm going to rely on it. I'm going to find out what Raymond has, his ideas. Where would you go with that? What have you done with that in the past, whatever that is? Find out where he's gone and rely. I know he's got it in there. I'm going to try and pull that out. Because it might give me, the leader, information to move better and have a So there are tools then for each of these for you, okay? Another key thing, we took a look at all that work on leadership, Covey's work, and we did 21 of these and 96 of those and 432 of these, and here's what leaders do and here's how they act. And here's what. I said, look, let's cut it down. So I was sitting at my dining room table one day and I said, basically, there are traditional types, there are pragmatic types, there are explorative types, and now we're going to suggest there are generative types. There are persons, methods, processes, and environments that might also be considered very traditional, or pragmatic, or explorative, or generative. If you have a highly traditional principal, leader, and you have a highly traditional set of teachers and practices and processes, guess what? You're stuck. Because all your conversation is going to be about stuff that's been done, processes, traditional, and the world is out here changing and doing all these different kinds of things, and you're still talking about traditional. That's why I pushed, remember the very first video I shared with you yesterday was about iPods and all that stuff, and I was pushing you a little bit because I want to know where you are. Pragmatic, meaning I pretty much go by the book. I'm very, very cautious in what I do, but I might take a step here or there. But I would be very tenuous, very cautious, low risk. A lot of times what happens is, in these cases with methods and processes, is they end up recycling ideas and conversations. They might put a new label on something that's basically the same old, and it recycles. And you end up in just kind of a recycle mode. Oh, didn't we do something like this like 8 years ago? I seem to remember, this was sort of like when we did such and such. And you look at it a little closer and you're going, it is the same thing we did 8 years ago. It's just somebody else repackaged it. Oh, so you end up in a recycled conversation that might take a few years.